My name's Jennifer Larson, and I turned 35 last Tuesday. I didn't expect a parade or anything, but I thought maybe my mom or my sister would at least send a text, a call, something to say they remembered. Nothing came. Not a single message, not even one of those group chat emojis that passes for effort these days. The day dragged on: work at the furniture store, a quick coffee run home to a quiet apartment. I went to bed thinking that was it, just another Tuesday. Then, at 6:47 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. I was half asleep, fumbling for it, expecting a spam email or some delivery update. Instead, it was a bank alert. $11,000 charged to your account. Paradise Travel Co. Thank you. I froze, staring at the screen, my thumb hovering over the notification. $11,000. I hadn't booked anything. I hadn't even taken a vacation in 3 years. My heart started pounding as I opened the app, the details loading one by one. Luxury resort package, Hawaii. 7 nights all-inclusive with private tours. Booked for 2. I read it again, my stomach twisting. There was only one explanation. Last year my mom begged to use my credit card for an emergency. Some story about medical bills piling up, their car breaking down. I don't even remember the details anymore. I gave her the number, trusted her, didn't think twice, never changed the card. That was my mistake. I called the travel agency, waited on hold for 15 minutes, my hands shaking. The agent confirmed it was booked under my mom's name. No hesitation, no apology, just her name, tied to a trip I wasn't invited to. I didn't call her. I didn't text my dad or my sister. I went straight to the bank's website, reported the charge as unauthorized, canceled the card, and ordered a new one. Then, just to make it clear, I opened my payment app and sent my mom $1. In the note, I typed 2 words: transaction declined. I attached a screenshot of the canceled booking, hit send, and waited. If this hits close to home, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about your own family drama. Trust me, you're not alone, and I'm just getting started. It was barely 8 a.m., the Portland morning traffic crawling along my hands, gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. I needed answers, needed to know exactly what my mom had done. The bank app had already shown the charge, $11,000 for a luxury trip to Hawaii, but I wanted someone to look me in the eye and confirm it wasn't a mistake. At the bank, I sat across from a teller named Karen, her name tag slightly crooked. I slid my ID and card details over the counter, explained the charge, and watched her type away. "Let me pull this up," she said, her voice calm, almost too calm for what I was feeling. A few clicks later, she looked at me, her expression shifting. The charge was made online, booked through Paradise Travel Co. It's tied to a reservation under Margaret Larson, my mom. No surprise there, but hearing it out loud made my chest tighten. I asked if there was any way to reverse it. Karen nodded, said it was flagged as unauthorized since I'd reported it yesterday. "We've already canceled the transaction," she said. "The funds will be back in your account in 3 to 5 days. I exhaled, but it wasn't relief. It was anger, sharp and heavy. "Can you close the card?" I asked, "and make sure no one else can use it?" She walked me through the steps, issued a new card, and by 9:15 it was done. My mom's access was cut off, and I felt a flicker of control for the first time in 24 hours, but I knew it wasn't over. I sent her a text, short and direct. "Why did you book a trip with my card? Call me." No response. Not even a read receipt. I sent the same to my dad. Nothing. The silence was louder than those missed calls. By noon, I was back at my apartment, pacing the living room, my phone still quiet. Then came a knock at the door, sharp, insistent, like someone who didn't plan on leaving. I opened it, and there they were, my mom and my dad, standing on my doorstep. My mom's arms were crossed, her lips pressed tight, like she was the one wronged. My dad stood behind her, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. No hello, no apology, just my mom launching in. "Jennifer, how could you cancel our trip? That was our dream vacation, something we've been planning for years. You know how hard things have been." I stared at her, waiting for the part where she'd say, Sorry, admit she used my card without asking. It didn't come. Instead, she kept going, her voice rising. You've got a good job, you're doing fine. Why can't you help us out? It's family. Family. That word hit me like a slap. I'd been paying their car insurance for months, covering their groceries when they forgot to budget. And now this, I cut her off, my voice steady but cold. You used my card for $11,000 without asking. That's not helping family, that's taking advantage. My dad finally spoke, his voice low, almost pleading. Jen, we didn't think you'd mind. We were going to pay you back. I almost laughed. Pay me back. With what they hadn't worked in years, living off retirement checks and whatever I gave them. I asked them when they planned to tell me. My mom's face hardened. We were going to talk about it after the trip. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. That was it. I'd heard enough. You need to leave, I said, pointing to the door. Now. They didn't move at first. My mom opened her mouth, probably to argue, but I held up my hand. I'm done. Out. My dad tugged her arm, muttering something I couldn't hear, and they finally left. I shut the door, leaned against it, my heart racing. I felt betrayed, raw, like everything I'd done for them meant nothing. I'd given them so much money, time, trust, and they'd thrown it back in my face. I sat on the couch staring at the wall, trying to make sense of it. How did it get to this? Then my phone buzzed. A text from my sister. I hadn't heard from her in days, not since before my birthday. I opened it, expecting maybe an explanation, maybe her taking my side. Instead, it was one sentence. You're going to regret this. My stomach dropped. Melissa wasn't just upset, she was threatening me. And I knew right then this was about to get worse. The next day, I woke up to a notification ping on my phone. I thought maybe it was my mom finally ready to explain herself after I kicked her and my dad out. But it wasn't. It was an Instagram alert. My sister Melissa had posted a story and I was tagged. I opened it and my heart sank. There, in bold text over a photo of her looking sad, were the words, "Some people care more about money than family. You know who you are, Jennifer." The comments were already piling up, cousins, family, friends, even people I hadn't talked to in years chiming in with, "That's awful," or "How could she?" I scrolled through my hands, shaking each comment like a punch. Ungrateful daughter? Selfish? What kind of sister does that? I didn't respond. I couldn't. My phone kept buzzing with texts, not just from random relatives, but from coworkers, neighbors, people I thought were on my side. One from my cousin Emily hit hard. "Jen, I can't believe you'd let your parents down like this. They need you." Another from a family friend. "You should be ashamed." I sat on my couch, staring at the screen, feeling the walls close in. Melissa hadn't just sent a threatening text, she'd gone public, twisting the story to make me the villain. She didn't mention my mom using my card without asking, didn't mention the $11,000 they tried to take. She'd painted me as the one who abandoned them, and people believed her. I wanted to call her, scream that she had no right, but I knew that's what she wanted, a reaction, something to twist further. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop near my store, needing to clear my head. That's where I ran into Daniel, my boyfriend. We'd been together for a year, but I hadn't told him much about my family drama, not yet. He was sitting at a corner table working on his laptop, his bank ID badge still clipped to his shirt. When he saw my face, he closed the screen and stood up. "Jen, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice soft but urgent. I didn't want to unload, but it all came spilling out: the card, the trip, my mom's excuses, my dad's silence, Melissa's text. Daniel listened, his jaw tightening with every word. When I showed him the Instagram post, he shook his head. "They're manipulating you," he said. "This isn't about family, it's about control. They're mad you stood up for yourself." I'd never thought of it that way. My whole life I'd been the one keeping things together, paying their bills, fixing their messes. But Daniel's words hit me hard. They weren't grateful. They were using me. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "Jen, you need to check everything. If they used your card, what else are they touching? Do you have any shared accounts? My stomach twisted. I'd almost forgotten about the savings account. Years ago, when I started working, my mom convinced me to open a joint account with her and my dad for emergencies, she said. I'd put money in every month thinking it was safe, thinking we were building something together. I hadn't checked it in months, maybe a year. Daniel walked me to my car, his hand on my shoulder. Go to the bank now, he said. Don't wait. I drove straight there, my mind racing. At the bank, I logged into the account on their system, my fingers trembling as the screen loaded. The balance appeared and I felt like I'd been slapped. Most of it was gone. Tens of thousands I'd saved money for a house for my future was nearly wiped out. Recent withdrawals, all to my mom's name, some to Melissa's. No warning, no permission, just gone. I stared at the screen, my throat tight, the teller's voice fading into the background. They hadn't just taken my card, they'd taken everything. The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of that bank screen, my savings nearly gone. I went back to the bank determined to figure out exactly what had happened. The teller pulled up the account history and the details hit me like a brick. Multiple withdrawals over the past month, some as recent as last week, all transferred to my mom and my sister. One large transfer stood out, $10,000 to an account linked to Melissa's name labeled Marketing Project. I remembered her talking about some big campaign she was pitching, social media ads, influencers, a new client she swore would make her career. She'd never mentioned using my money for it. I asked the teller to trace the withdrawals. She confirmed my mom had initiated most of them using her access to the joint account. My sister's name was on the rest. They hadn't just dipped into the account, they'd drained it, leaving barely enough to cover a month's rent. I felt sick, not just because of the money, but because I'd trusted them. Years ago, my mom convinced me to open that account for family emergencies. I'd put in every spare dollar thinking it was for all of us. Now it was funding Melissa's dreams and who knows what for my mom. I told the teller to close the account. Transfer what's left to my personal account. I said, my voice shaking but firm. She nodded, typed quickly, and within minutes the joint account was gone. I felt a weight lift, but it wasn't enough. I knew my parents' house, the one they'd lived in since I was a kid, was tied to a mortgage I'd co-signed years ago when their credit wasn't good enough. I'd been young, naive, thinking it was my duty. Now I saw it for what it was, another way they'd tied me to their problems. I called my lawyer, a guy I'd met through work, and asked how to remove my name from the loan. He said it would take paperwork and proof of their financial misconduct, but it was possible. I told him to start the process no matter how long it took. That afternoon I was at my desk sorting through furniture orders when my phone rang. It was Melissa. I didn't want to answer, but I needed to hear her try to justify this. What do you want? I said, keeping my voice steady. She didn't waste time. You closed the account. Are you serious, Jennifer? That money was for my project, the one that could have set me up for life. You're ruining everything. Her voice was sharp, accusing, like I'd stolen from her. I almost laughed. That was my money, Melissa. Mine. You and Mom took it without asking. What did you expect? She didn't back down. You don't get it. Mom needed that money too. She's been struggling, and you're too selfish to care. You're breaking this family apart. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Breaking the family. They'd been breaking me for years, taking my money, my trust, my time. I told her I was done, that I wasn't their bank anymore. You're unbelievable, she snapped. You'll pay for this, Jen. You'll see. She hung up before I could respond, but her words lingered heavy with venom. I sat there, my heart aching, but my resolve stronger than ever. I wasn't going to let them guilt me into submission anymore. I spent the rest of the day gathering documents, bank statements, mortgage papers, anything my lawyer could use to get my name off that loan. It felt like cutting a chain link by link. But the pain didn't go away. Every time I thought about my mom and Melissa, I saw their faces, heard their excuses, and it hurt. They were my family, the people I'd grown up with, laughed with, cried with, and now they were strangers who saw me as a paycheck. I pushed the thought away, focusing on the paperwork, on taking back control. By evening, I was at the furniture store locking up for the night. The parking lot was quiet, the streetlights just starting to glow. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there they were, my mom and my dad standing in front of the store, their faces lit by the neon sign. My mom's eyes were narrow, her arms crossed. My dad looked tired, but he didn't say a word. I froze my keys in my hand, knowing this wasn't going to be a conversation, it was going to be a fight. My mom stepped forward, her voice sharp, cutting through the evening air. "Jennifer, you've gone too far," she said, her arms still crossed, her eyes locked on mine. "Taking your name off our house loan. Do you know what that does to us?" My dad stayed silent, his hands in his pockets, but his presence felt heavy, like he was backing her up without saying a word. Before I could respond, another car pulled up. Melissa stepped out, her face a mix of anger and smugness, like she'd planned this ambush. I gripped my keys, my pulse racing. "What do you want?" I asked, looking between them. My mom didn't hesitate. "You need to put your name back on that loan, Jennifer, and open that savings account again. We're family, you can't just abandon us." Melissa chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, Jen, real nice. You're leaving us homeless over some money you don't even need." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Homeless. They'd taken tens of thousands from me, used my card for a luxury trip, and now I was the bad guy. I took a step forward, my voice steady but burning. "You took my savings without asking. You used my card for a trip I wasn't invited to, and now you're here demanding more. I'm done." My mom's face twisted. "If you don't fix this, we'll sue you," she said. "You signed that loan, you're responsible." Melissa nodded, crossing her arms. "You think you can just walk away? We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of daughter you are." My dad finally spoke, his voice low. "Jen, just do the right thing. For us." I felt the anger boil over, years of their demands flashing through my mind, every bill I paid, every emergency I covered, every time I put their needs above mine. I wasn't going to let them bully me anymore. "You want to sue me?" I said, my voice loud enough for a passing employee to glance over. "Go ahead. I've got proof of everything you've done." I turned and walked to my car, their voices following me, shouting about family and loyalty. I didn't look back. That night, I sat at my apartment, my laptop open. Melissa's Instagram post was still up, racking up comments from people who didn't know the truth. I'd stayed silent too long, letting them control the narrative. Not anymore. I opened my own Instagram, took a deep breath, and started typing. I posted screenshots, bank records showing the withdrawals from my savings, the canceled travel charge emails from my lawyer about the loan. I kept it simple. This is what my family did. They took my money, lied about me, and now they're threatening to sue. I'm done being their bank. I hit post, my hands shaking, but my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. By morning, my phone was buzzing again, not with hate, but with support. Friends from work, old classmates, even strangers had seen my post. Comments flooded in. "That's awful, Jen, you don't deserve this. Your family's out of line. Stay strong." Someone shared it to a local Portland group and it spread. People started tagging Melissa, calling her out. Her post, once full of sympathy, now had replies like, "You stole from your sister and shame on you." My mom's name came up too, with people I didn't even know saying they'd seen this kind of thing before. The tide had turned, and for the first time I felt like I wasn't alone. I was at the store the next day, rearranging a display, when my phone rang. I expected another call from a cousin or a friend, but the caller ID showed my bank. My stomach dropped. I answered, and the voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Ms. Larson, we need to discuss the mortgage loan tied to your parents' property." I froze, the phone pressed to my ear, knowing whatever came next was going to change everything. The representative's voice was clipped, professional, but every word felt like a stone dropping in my stomach. Ms. Larson, your parents' mortgage is in default, she said. They've missed 3 payments and a foreclosure notice has been issued. Since your name was recently removed from the loan, we need to confirm you're no longer liable. I exhaled the weight of their financial mess, no longer mine, but the relief was bittersweet. That house, the one I'd grown up in where I'd played in the backyard, celebrated holidays, was slipping away because of their choices. I confirmed my withdrawal from the loan, thanked her, and hung up my hands, trembling. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring past. My phone buzzed relentlessly, texts, voicemails, missed calls from my mom, my dad, and Melissa. I didn't open them. Their voices, their excuses were the last thing I needed. By the next morning, I heard through a mutual friend that Melissa's big marketing deal had fallen apart. Her client, some startup founder, had seen the Instagram backlash after my post. People had flooded her comments, calling out her lies, her greed. The client backed out, saying they couldn't work with someone who'd lost all credibility. Melissa's dream project, the one she'd drained my savings for, was dead. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, but instead, I just felt hollow. She'd brought this on herself, but she was still my sister. Their attempts to reach me didn't stop. My mom left voicemails, her tone shifting from angry to pleading. "Jennifer, we're losing everything. Please talk to us." My dad sent texts, short and vague. "We need to fix this, Jen." Melissa's messages were sharper, accusing me of ruining her life. I deleted them all one by one, my finger hovering over each notification before letting it go. I'd spent years answering their calls, bailing them out, believing their promises. Now every unanswered message felt like a step toward freedom, even if it hurt. I met Daniel for dinner that evening at a small diner near my apartment. He'd been my rock through this, and I needed his clarity. Over coffee and burgers, I told him about the foreclosure notice and Melissa's lost deal. He listened, his eyes steady, then reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "You're not responsible for their mistakes, Jen," he said. "You've done enough, more than enough. It's time to focus on you." He was right. I'd been so caught up in their chaos, I'd forgotten what it felt like to live for myself. Daniel talked about our future, saving for a place together, maybe a trip somewhere quiet, just the two of us. His words were a lifeline, pulling me toward something new, something mine. The next few days, I threw myself into work. Rearranging displays, helping customers, training a new hire, it kept my mind busy. I blocked my family's numbers not out of spite, but because I needed space to breathe. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened, like I could finally make choices without their weight dragging me down. But there was a sadness too, a quiet ache for the family I'd once thought we were. I'd loved them, trusted them, and now I was letting go of that dream. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I was sorting through paperwork at home one evening when I checked my mailbox. Among the usual bills and ads was a plain white envelope, no return address, just my name in familiar handwriting. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. It was from my mom. I stood there staring at the letter, knowing that whatever was inside would pull me back into their world or give me a reason to walk away for good. I held the letter from my mom in my hands, its weight heavier than the paper itself. Sitting at my kitchen table, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge, I hesitated. A part of me didn't want to know what she'd written, but I needed closure. I tore open the envelope, unfolding a single page filled with her familiar handwriting. She didn't apologize. Instead, she wrote about their struggles. The house was gone, taken by the bank, and they were staying with a cousin now. She said Melissa was devastated after losing her job, that my dad was barely sleeping. "We're your family, Jennifer," she wrote. "We need you to come back to help us rebuild. You're all we have left." I put the letter down, my chest tight, but my mind clear. For years, I'd been their lifeline, paying their bills, signing their loans, giving until I had nothing left. This letter wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It was another demand dressed up as desperation. I wrote a short reply on a note card: "I can't keep fixing your mistakes. I wish you well, but I'm done." I mailed it the next day, and as the mailbox clinked shut, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. I'd made my choice, and it wasn't about anger anymore. It was about protecting my own peace. Life started to feel different after that. Daniel and I began planning our wedding, keeping it small just the way we wanted. We chose a quiet park in Portland with a little gazebo surrounded by trees. On the day, I wore a simple white dress, nothing fancy, and Daniel stood there in a suit, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Our friends from work and a few close neighbors filled the chairs, their smiles warm and genuine. As we exchanged vows, I felt something I hadn't in years, happiness, pure and unburdened. Daniel promised to stand by me to build a life together, and I believed him. When we kissed, the small crowd cheered, and for the first time I felt truly free. I heard bits and pieces about my family through others. The house was officially foreclosed, sold off to cover their debts. Melissa had lost her marketing job after her client fallout, and last I heard she was working odd gigs, her reputation still tarnished from the online backlash. My parents, now living with relatives, had become the talk of their small circle, not for their charm, but for how they'd treated me. People who once sided with them now kept their distance, their sympathy worn thin. I didn't feel joy at their downfall, but I didn't feel guilt either. They'd made their choices just as I'd made mine. The biggest lesson I took from all this wasn't about money or betrayal, it was about boundaries. I'd spent so long believing family meant sacrificing everything that love meant saying yes to every demand. But I learned that protecting myself wasn't selfish. It was survival. Setting boundaries didn't mean I stopped caring. It meant I started valuing my own happiness. I wasn't just a daughter or a sister. I was Jennifer with dreams, goals, and a life to live. That realization gave me confidence I'd never had before. Now Daniel and I are building something new. We're saving for a house one we'll choose together, not tied to anyone else's mistakes. I'm still running my furniture store, and it's doing better than ever. New customers, new designs, new possibilities. I don't talk to my family anymore, and while that leaves a quiet ache, sometimes I know it's for the best. My life is mine now, not a series of debts I owe to people who never valued me. To everyone who's listened to my story, thank you. It means the world to share this and know you're out there hearing me. If my journey resonates with you, or if you've ever had to set boundaries to find your own peace, I hope you'll share your thoughts below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, please hit that subscribe button. It keeps this channel going. And I'm so grateful for every one of you.